The day I took back my lake, a tale of justice and water. It was a crisp September morning when I stepped out onto my porch, coffee in hand, ready to cast a line into the lake that had been my sanctuary for decades. The air smelled of pine and damp earth, and the water shimmered under the early sun. My dock, a weathered but sturdy relic of my father's era, stretched out over the lake's edge, a place where I'd fished, dreamed, and found peace. But that morning, peace was the last thing I found. A 6-foot chain-link fence, glinting like a jail cell, blocked my path to the dock. A tacky sign from the Homeowners Association, HOA, hung on it, proclaiming, "Private community area. Violators will be prosecuted." I stood there, barefoot, my tackle box dangling from one hand, trying to process the absurdity. This wasn't just any lake. My family owned the dam that fed it, a fact etched into deeds and county records since my father helped build it in the 1960s. That dock was mine, paid for with years of permits, maintenance, and sweat. And now, someone had the nerve to call it community property? Then I saw her, Marlene, the new HOA president, striding toward me with the swagger of a sheriff in a bad western. Her smirk said she'd been waiting for this moment. Little did she know, she just picked a fight with the man who held the key to the water itself. I'm Walter Hayes, 54, a retired engineer who spent most of his life on this lake in upstate Michigan. It's not just a body of water, it's a legacy. My father built the dam that keeps this lake alive, and I've maintained it ever since, checking valves, filing permits, even stocking fish to keep the ecosystem thriving. The lake's been a quiet haven for me and my neighbors, a place where kids skip rocks and old-timers swap stories. But Marlene, a 40-something transplant from the city with a clipboard and a vendetta, had other plans. She marched up, waving a laminated HOA badge like it was a federal warrant. "Walter, this lake belongs to the community now," she declared. "Your dock's non-compliant. You'll need HOA approval to access it." I tried to stay calm, explaining that the dock sat on my land, and the dam feeding the lake was mine, too. She laughed a sharp, dismissive cackle and told me to file an appeal with the HOA board she controlled. That's when I noticed her golf cart parked nearby, loaded with lawn chairs and bunting. She wasn't just blocking my dock. She was planning to turn it into her personal stage. I didn't argue. I turned back to my cabin, pulled out a steel key labeled spillway control, and opened a file of legal documents. One line stood out: dam ownership and flow rights. Walter Hayes, sole trustee. Marlene thought she'd won. She had no idea I could shut off the lake's lifeblood with a single turn of that key. Marlene wasted no time. By the next day, she'd rebranded the lake as Marlene's Haven on the neighborhood app, posting mock-ups of a floating dock, a concert stage, and get these a ticket booth. She hired contractors who spray-painted markers on my property line, ignoring my deed. When I confronted one, he mumbled, "HOA president's orders," and scurried off. Marlene even hosted a Lake Vision breakfast, serving stale muffins and preaching about community-first shorelines. Meanwhile, I watched from my porch, binoculars in hand, as she strung tiki torches around my dock for an HOA preview night. I wasn't about to let her steamroll me. I called my cousin, Sarah, a real estate attorney with a knack for property law. She laughed so hard she nearly dropped her phone when I told her Marlene was trying to privatize my dock. "Don't just stop her," Sarah said. "Make her regret ever crossing you." We pulled permits, reviewed plats, and notified the county of zoning violations. But I held off on the big move. Marlene's biggest mistake wasn't the fence, it was underestimating the lake's heart, the dam I controlled. That evening, I drove to the dam, a sturdy concrete structure perched above the lake. I opened the spillway panel, entered the code, and activated remote outflow controls. With a few taps on my phone, I could reduce the lake's flow. I didn't want to drain it had it be too obvious. Instead, I opted for a slow bleed, just enough to make Marlene's plans unravel. My lake, my rules. By day 3, the lake was changing. The water no longer lapped at the rocks, and a muddy halo grew around Marlene's community dock. Canoes dragged bottom, and pontoon boats tilted awkwardly. Kids couldn't dive without hitting muck. At an HOA meeting, Marlene blamed seasonal evaporation, even though it had rained all week. I nearly choked on my coffee when a neighbor pointed that out. But she doubled down, distributing glossy flyers for her lakefront enhancement project, promising paddleboards, concerts, and a semi-public recreation zone. She even claimed the county supported her ally Sarah, and I saw through immediately. I'd already sent certified letters to the HOA and county, detailing my dam ownership and water rights, backed by decades of tax receipts and permits. Marlene ignored them. She didn't know I'd also invited Rick, a county conservation officer, to inspect the dam. He was impressed by my flow controls, thinking it was for ecological balance. I let him believe that. The fewer people who knew my strategy, the better. Marlene's desperation peaked when she tried to refill the lake. She hired a handyman to run hoses from fire hydrants, a blatant violation. The city water department caught her within hours, slapping her with thousands in fines. The county commissioner flagged the HOA for a zoning audit. Marlene's empire was crumbling, but she kept digging. She accused me of sabotage on the neighborhood forum, claiming I was hoarding water. Then, a resident named Evelyn, a sharp-witted retiree, posted, "Marlene, the lake was fine until you showed up with your fences and torches. Maybe you're the problem." The post got 70 likes. I sent Evelyn a jar of my homemade blackberry jam. The tipping point came when Marlene tried to build a stage on my submerged shoreline. Sarah documented every beam, every banner, every flyer promising exclusive lake access. It was ammunition, and we were loaded. Then Marlene made her fatal mistake. She tried to refill the lake again, this time without permits. The county hit her with a $15,000 fine for unpermitted development and illegal water use. A local blog ran a scathing headline, "HOA President's Lake Party Turns to Mud It." The comments were brutal. Memes of Marlene as Queen of the Quagmire went viral. I drafted a cease and desist letter, complete with aerial photos and legal citations, demanding she remove her structures within 7 days. Marlene threw a public tantrum, accusing me of water bullying. The HOA board, fed up with her antics, began to distance themselves. At a meeting, she ranted about fighting for every drop, unaware that Sarah had already filed an injunction blocking any HOA claim to the lake. When Sarah handed out copies of the dam deed, a board member muttered, "He owns the whole dam?" The room fell silent. Marlene stormed out. By week 2, the lake was 4 feet lower. Marlene's floating stage was grounded in silt, her flamingo arch deflated, and her summer launch bash was a disaster. Guests slipped in mud, the taco truck ran out of food, and the DJ's speaker broke. Marlene screamed at vendors, blamed the city, and insisted someone was draining the lake. I watched from my porch, sipping sweet tea, letting her implode. Then came the knockout punch. A county surveyor uncovered a 1980s annexation clause. If the lake level dropped due to my dam, any HOA land crossing into the exposed lakebed would revert to me. Overnight, I gained legal control of 40% of the shoreline and the HOA's only access road to their boat ramp. I hadn't just defended my dock, I'd accidentally inherited half the lakefront. Sarah filed a claim to formalize the transfer. Marlene showed up at my cabin, clutching a binder, demanding a truce. I pointed to the surveyor trucks. "It's not extortion, Marlene. It's history, law, and hydrology." Sarah added, "We don't negotiate with trespassers." Marlene left, defeated. Her final stunt was at Shoreline Security Patrol, 2 teens with clipboards and fake badges, telling residents to move kayaks for visual uniformity. My nephew recorded one fumbling the explanation. The video went viral as Lake Marlene hires rent-a-kids to guard swamp. The HOA board called an emergency meeting. Residents played audio of Marlene's unhinged rants about surveillance buoys and fingerprint locks. The vote was unanimous. Marlene was out. Marlene's fall was complete when a leaked audit revealed she'd misused $15,000 in HOA funds on personal purchases, including a designer patio set. She faced lawsuits from residents who'd paid for her failed events. She sold her house and moved 2 counties away, her dreams of HOA domination reduced to a cautionary tale. The lake returned to normal as I gradually restored the dam's flow. Kids splashed again, boats floated, and neighbors grilled burgers at a community cleanup day on my dock. I set one rule: no fences, no torches. To mark the victory, I installed a wooden sign by my dock. Lake access. Be respectful always. Property of the dam owner. It wasn't flashy, just a reminder of who held the flow. The lake sparkled under the Michigan sun, its ripples erasing the scars of Marlene's reign. I'd protected my father's legacy, not with shouting or threats, but with patience, law, and the quiet power of water. What do you think, readers? Have you ever faced someone like Marlene, wielding power they don't deserve? Or dealt with injustice that pushed you to fight back? Share your stories in the comments, especially your thoughts on standing up to bullies or reclaiming what's yours. Was I too harsh, or did Marlene get what she deserved? Let's hear your take.